When my daughter-in-law told me to stop calling my own son, I did not cry. I smiled. Not because I was strong, not because I agreed, but because my heart had already gone quiet, like a room where the lights have been turned off one by one. She stood there in my son's living room, the room I helped paint before he got married. The walls I chose carefully, saying, "This color feels warm." The curtains I bought with my own hands, thinking they would see many family days. The sofa I paid half for, and never truly sat on again. I remember how clean everything looked. Too clean, like a place where nothing was meant to stay for long.
Her voice was calm.
Not angry, not loud, that almost hurt more. She spoke slowly, like she had practiced the words in her head many times. She did not look at me with hate. She did not look at me with love either. She said, "Please don't call him anymore. He has a wife now." That sentence was short, but it felt heavy. It fell between us like something fragile breaking on the floor. And I was afraid to move, afraid that if I spoke, I would shatter too. I nodded. I nodded like I understood. Like this was normal. Like this was something mothers should accept quietly. The way we accept wrinkles. The way we accept silence. I nodded the way women of my age are taught to nod. With no questions. With no space for our own feelings. Inside me, something folded in half. Something old. Something tired. It was the part of me that stayed awake when he was sick as a child. The part that waited up at night until he came home safe. The part that prayed without words when he left the house every morning. That part folded slowly, like a letter you know you will never send. My son stood near the window. He did not say anything. He did not look at me. The light from outside fell on his face. And for a moment, he looked like the little boy I used to carry on my hip. I wanted to call his name. Just once. But I didn't. Because I was afraid that if I did, someone would tell me I was crossing a line. I picked up my purse. I thanked her for the tea she never finished making. I walked to the door. No one stopped me. When I stepped outside, the air felt different. Heavier. Colder. The sound of the door closing behind me was soft. But it stayed in my ears all the way home. That night, I lay in my bed and stared at the ceiling. The same ceiling I had stared at for years, but it felt unfamiliar now. I counted the cracks. I followed them with my eyes, from one corner to the other, like they were roads I could get lost on. I listened to the clock. Tick, tick, tick. Each sound felt like it was asking me something. I turned to my side, then to the other. Sleep did not come. My phone was on the table beside my bed, face down, silent. I did not turn it over. I was afraid of what I might hope for. I thought about all the times my son used to call me, how his name would light up my screen, how my heart would lift before I even answered. I remembered how he used to say, "Mama, I just wanted to hear your voice." I wondered when that voice became a problem, when it became too much, when it became something to be removed. I asked myself one question over and over. When did loving my own son become a mistake? I said it in my head. I whispered it into the dark. I pressed it into my pillow. No answer came. Only memories. I remembered holding his small hand on his first day of school. How he squeezed my fingers because he was afraid. How I told him, "I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." I remembered the nights he studied late, and I stayed awake just to hear him come home. Not because he needed me, but because I needed to know he was safe. I remembered his wedding day. How proud I felt. How I told myself, this is not a loss. This is a beginning. I believed that. I truly did. I never wanted to be the kind of mother who holds too tightly. I never wanted to be in the way. I told myself I would step back gracefully, that I would respect his new life, that love does not need to be loud to be real. But no one tells you that stepping back can feel like disappearing. No one warns you that silence can feel heavier than words. I stared at the ceiling until my eyes burned, until the night felt endless. I wondered if this was how it would be from now on. Days without his voice, weeks without his laughter, years without knowing the small details of his life. I wondered if he missed me, or if he thought I was strong enough not to. I wondered if he knew how carefully I had been calling, how I waited days before dialing, how I practiced what to say so I would not take too much of his time. I never called to complain. I never called to interfere.
I just wanted to ask if he had eaten.
If he was well, if he was happy. That night, I understood something painful. Sometimes people do not ask us to leave loudly. Sometimes they ask quietly, with polite words, with calm voices. And sometimes we leave before anyone has to ask again. I turned my phone face down. I closed my eyes, and I told myself, be quiet now. Do not make trouble. This is what love looks like now. But even as I said those words, my heart did not believe them. It only felt small, and tired, and very alone that I raised my son alone. Those words sound simple when I say them now, but they carry many years inside them. Many quiet mornings, many long nights. His father passed away when he was only 6 years old. One morning, my husband woke up early. He drank his tea. He kissed my forehead. He touched our son's head gently as he slept. He said, "I'll be back before dinner." And then he went to work. He never came home. There was an accident. That is what they told me. People came to the house.
People spoke softly.
People avoided my eyes. I remember holding my son close. He kept asking, "Where's Papa?" I did not know how to answer him, because I did not understand it myself. From that day on, it was just the two of us. No one prepares you for that kind of life. You learn it slowly. You learn it while your heart is still hurting. Our house was small. 2 rooms, a narrow kitchen, a tiny bathroom, but it was warm, not because of the walls, but because of the love we tried to keep alive inside it. I worked long hours, sometimes 2 jobs, sometimes 3. I cleaned houses. I stitched clothes. I took any work that came my way. I did not complain. I did not think of myself as strong. I just thought, my son needs me. Every morning, I woke up before sunrise. I packed his school bag. I combed his hair carefully. I tied his shoes. I cooked simple meals.
Rice, soup, bread.
Nothing fancy, nothing special, but I made sure there was always food on the table, even if I ate less myself. Every night, no matter how tired I was, I tucked my son into bed. I sat beside him. I told him stories. Sometimes they were stories I remembered from my own childhood. Sometimes I made them up. Stories about brave boys. Stories about kind men. Stories where mothers never left. I promised him he would never be alone. I said it softly. I said it often. And I meant it. There were nights when he cried quietly. He missed his father. I held him close. I let his tears soak into my clothes. I told him it was okay to cry. I cried after he fell asleep, in the bathroom,
So he would not hear me.
As the years passed, he grew taller, stronger.
Kinder.
He was never loud, never rude. He helped me without being asked. He carried groceries. He fixed small things around the house. He said thank you for every meal,
Even when it was just plain rice.
People used to tell me, "You raised him well."
I smiled when they said that.
But inside, I always thought, he raised me too. When he left for college, the house felt too quiet. His room stayed the same for a long time. His books on the shelf, his jacket behind the door. The first night without him, I could not sleep. I kept listening for his footsteps. I kept expecting him to call my name, but he called me instead. Every day, sometimes just for 1 minute, sometimes while he was walking to class. "Mama," he would say, "I just wanted to hear you." His first question was always the same. "Did you eat, Mama?" Not, "How are you?" Not, "What are you doing?"
Did you eat?
That was how he showed love. Quietly.
Carefully.
I never told him how much those words meant to me.
I thought there would be time.
When he told me he was getting married, I smiled wider than I ever had before. I remember sitting on my bed after he left. I pressed my hands together. I thanked God. I prayed for his happiness. I prayed for his future. I did not feel jealous. I did not feel afraid. I truly believed that love grows when shared. I met his wife before the wedding. She was polite, soft-spoken. She called me auntie at first. Later, she called me mama. That word made my heart warm. I welcomed her like my own daughter. I cooked for her. I asked her what she liked. I listened to her dreams. She talked about her plans, her work, the kind of home she wanted. I listened carefully. I nodded. I encouraged her. I wanted her to feel safe with me. I wanted her to know I was not a threat. On the wedding day, I stood quietly to the side. I did not interfere. I did not give advice. I watched my son smile. I watched him stand tall. I told myself, this is the beginning of a new chapter. After the marriage, they moved into a new place. Not far, but not close either. I helped them set it up. I helped choose the wall colors. I helped buy curtains. I brought small things from my house.
Plates, cups,
Extra towels. Things a home needs. I did not stay long. I did not want to disturb them. I went back to my quiet house. I told myself, this is how life moves forward. At first, everything felt fine. My son still called. Maybe not every day, but often. I understood. He was busy. I never complained. When I visited, I brought food. I cleaned up before leaving. I did not sit too long. I watched the time carefully. I did not want to overstep. Slowly, things began to change. Not all at once. Not clearly. Just small things. The calls became shorter. Visits became less. I noticed I was always the one reaching out. Always the one asking. I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself not to be sensitive. I never thought love could push me out. I never imagined that one day I would feel like a stranger in my own son's life. But at that time, I still believed everything would be okay. I still believed love was enough. After the wedding, things changed slowly. Not in a way you could point at and say, this is where it went wrong. It was more like the way daylight fades in the evening. You do not notice the darkness at first. You only realize it when the room is already quiet. At first, it was small. My calls went unanswered. I would look at my phone and see it ringing, then stopping, then nothing. I told myself he was busy. I told myself not to worry. I sent messages instead. Short ones. Careful ones. Did you eat? How are you feeling today? I cooked your favorite soup. The messages stayed unread. Not always, but often enough to make my heart pause every time I checked. When he did answer, his voice sounded different. Still kind, but rushed. Mama, I'm a little busy. I'll call you later, Mama. Later never came. I started waiting for that later. I would finish my work early. I would sit with my phone beside me. I did not turn on the television. I did not lie down. I waited. Sometimes the night passed quietly. Sometimes I fell asleep with my phone in my hand. In the morning, there was still no call. I told myself not to feel hurt. I reminded myself he was married now. That life changes. But understanding something does not always stop it from hurting. When I visited them, I felt different inside that house. I used to walk in without thinking, like family does. Now I knocked softly, even when the door was open. I asked before opening the fridge, is it okay if I take some water? I waited for answers before moving, before sitting, before speaking. I sat quietly on the edge of the sofa, not leaning back, not getting too comfortable. I felt like if I relaxed too much, someone might notice and feel uncomfortable. His wife was polite, always polite. She smiled when she spoke. She asked if I wanted tea. She thanked me when I brought food. But her smiles were thin. They did not reach her eyes. Her eyes watched everything. They followed me when I moved around the kitchen. They noticed how long I stayed. They counted how often I spoke to my son. She never said anything directly. Not at first. That made it harder. Silence can say many things. I started choosing my words carefully. I stopped talking about the past. I stopped sharing stories. I did not want to remind her that my son had a life before her. Sometimes when my son spoke to me, she would suddenly need him. She would call his name from another room, or ask him to help with something small. He would stand up immediately. "I'll be right back, Mama." And he would leave. I would sit there alone, listening to their voices from the other room, trying not to feel like I was in the way. I noticed he did not look at me as often, not because he was angry, but because he was careful. Careful not to upset her. Careful not to create tension. I understood that. I truly did. I told myself, he is trying to balance two worlds. But slowly, I began to feel like one of those worlds was fading. One day, she said something. Not harsh, not unkind, just soft enough to hurt. We were standing in the kitchen. My son had stepped out to take a call. She poured tea into 2 cups. She handed one to me. Then she said, "You call him a lot." Her voice was gentle, almost friendly. I laughed it off. "Oh," I said, "I'm just his mother." I tried to make it sound light, like a joke. She nodded, but she said nothing. That silence stayed with me. It followed me home. It sat with me at night. It repeated itself in my head. "You call him a lot." I began counting my calls after that. I began waiting longer between them. I told myself I would only call if it was important. I told myself I would not disturb him. But what is important to a mother? Everything feels important, and nothing feels safe to say. Days passed.
Weeks.
I noticed my son stopped calling on his own, unless I called first. Even then, his answers were short. "Yes, Mama." "No, Mama." "I'm fine." The warmth was still there, but it felt far away, like a fire scene from a distance. When I went home after visiting them, I felt tired in a way sleep did not fix. I would sit in my quiet house. I would look at his childhood photos. I wondered if I was holding on too tightly, or if I was letting go too quickly. I talked to no one about this. I did not want to sound like a complaining mother. I did not want to blame his wife. I told myself she was young. She wanted her own space. I respected that. But respect does not stop loneliness. I stopped dropping by without calling first. Then I stopped dropping by at all. I told myself I would wait to be invited. The invitations never came. Sometimes I would hear from relatives. They would say, "Oh, your son and his wife went here." "Oh, they did that." I smiled when they told me. I said, "That's nice." Inside, something ached. I wondered when I stopped being someone he shared things with. One evening, I called him after many days. He answered after the 3rd ring. "Mama?" "Yes," I said. "I just wanted to hear your voice." There was a pause. Then he said, "I'm a little busy right now." I said I understood. I always said I understood. After the call ended, I sat quietly for a long time. I did not cry. I did not get angry. I just felt small, like my place in his life had become very narrow, like I had to stand very still not to fall out of it. I began remembering the promise I made him as a child, that he would never be alone. I wondered if I had made that promise too well, if he had learned to walk forward without looking back. I started keeping my phone on silent, not because I did not want to hear it, but because the sound of it not ringing hurt more. Sometimes I typed messages and erased them, again and again. I practiced conversations in my head, but never had them. I told myself, do not create problems. Do not be difficult. Be understanding. I became very good at being understanding. One afternoon, when I visited again after a long gap, I noticed something small. My son's phone rang. He smiled when he saw the name. He answered immediately. It was her. She was in the other room, but he spoke like she was far away.
His voice softened. He laughed.
I watched him. I was happy he was happy. I truly was. But I also felt invisible, like a piece of furniture that had always been there. Useful, but unnoticed. When I stood up to leave, he hugged me quickly. "Take care, Mama." I wanted to say so many things. I wanted to tell him I missed him, that I felt lost. But I only said, "You too," because I did not want to add weight to his life. On the way home, I looked out the window of the bus. People were laughing,
talking.
living. I felt like I was watching life instead of being inside it. That night, I sat alone at my table. I ate slowly. I listened to the silence.
I realized something then.
No one had pushed me away loudly. No one had shouted. I was being moved aside quietly,
Gently.
politely. And somehow, that hurt the most, the day she told me to stop calling him. The rain was falling outside. It was not heavy rain, not loud, just steady. The kind that does not rush. The kind that stays. I remember it clearly, because the sound of that rain followed me home. It followed my thoughts. It stayed with me long after I closed my door.
I had not planned to stay long that day.
I never did anymore. I brought a small container of food. Something simple. Something I knew my son liked. I told myself I would drop it off, say hello, and leave. When I arrived, she opened the door. She smiled politely. The same thin smile. My son was in the living room. He stood up when he saw me. "Mama," he said. His voice was gentle, but distant. We exchanged a few words. Nothing important. Just the usual. She went into the kitchen. Then she came back. She asked my son if he could help her with something. He nodded and followed her. She turned back to me and said, "Can I speak to you for a moment?"
Her voice was calm.
Too calm. I followed her into the other room. She closed the door behind us. That sound was soft, but it felt final. She stood near the window. The rain tapped lightly against the glass. She did not raise her voice. She did not look angry. She said, "He needs space now." I waited for more words, but there were none. I waited for her to explain, to soften it, to say it kindly, but that was all. I stood there quietly, my hands folded in front of me, like a child being corrected. I wanted to ask, space from what? From my voice? From my concern? From my love?
But I did not ask.
She continued, "He has a new life now, a family." I nodded slowly. I did not want to look confused. I did not want to look hurt. She looked relieved when I nodded, like she was glad the words were finally spoken. I waited for my son to speak. I waited for him to say something. Anything. I waited for him to say, "No, Mama, that's not what I meant."
Or,
"Let's talk about this." But he didn't. He stood just outside the room. I could see him through the open space near the door. He looked at the floor. Not at me. Not at her. At the floor. That was the moment I understood. I had already lost him. Not that day. Not with those words. I had lost him slowly. Quietly. Piece by piece. And now I was just being informed. I felt something inside me loosen. Like a knot finally giving up. I nodded again. "I understand," I said. My voice sounded steady. Even to me. She smiled slightly. Relieved again. My son still did not look up. I picked at my purse. I thanked her for listening to me, even though I had done most of the listening. I walked toward the door. My son followed me. "Mama," he said softly. I turned around. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. He did not know what to say. Or maybe he knew,
and chose not to.
"Take care," he said. I nodded. Outside, the rain felt colder. It touched my face gently, like it was trying to comfort me. I walked slowly to the bus stop. The sound of rain followed me. Inside the bus, I sat by the window. I watched the world blur past. My reflection stared back at me. I barely recognized myself. At home, I took off my shoes. I placed my purse down carefully. I did not turn on the lights. I sat in the quiet. For a long time, I did nothing. I replayed the moment in my head, over and over. Her words, his silence. I thought about all the times I stayed quiet to keep peace. All the times I stepped back without being asked. I wondered when space became a wall. That night, I did not call him. I did not message. I sat with my phone in my hand. I turned it over, face down. I told myself I was respecting his space. But deep inside, I was afraid. Afraid that if I reached out again, I would be told to stop again. Afraid that the next silence would hurt more. Days passed. No call came. No message. I told myself this was temporary, that things would settle. But something had shifted. I could feel it, like a door that closes quietly, but never opens the same way again. I stopped waking up early to check my phone. I stopped expecting it to ring. I folded my son's childhood clothes and placed them away. I cleaned his room. I told myself I was making space too.
Friends asked about him.
I smiled and said he was busy. I did not tell them the truth, because the truth felt heavy and personal. At night, I talked to God quietly.
I did not ask for my son back.
I only asked for strength. I asked to not feel bitter. I asked to not feel angry. Some nights were harder than others. Some nights, I sat on the edge of my bed and cried softly. So softly that even I could barely hear myself. Other nights, I felt nothing at all. That scared me more. Weeks passed. One evening, my phone rang. It was him. My heart jumped. Then it slowed. I answered calmly. "Mama," he said. "Yes," I replied. There was a pause. Then he said, "Why don't you call anymore?" I closed my eyes. I took a breath. And I said the truth. I didn't want to disturb you. He was quiet. I did not explain further. I did not remind him of that day. He said, "I didn't mean." His voice trailed off. I waited, but he did not finish the sentence. We talked for a few minutes about small things. When the call ended, I sat quietly again.
I realized something then.
Even when love is still there, distance can change its shape. And sometimes, the moment that breaks you is not loud. It is soft, polite, quiet. Like rain falling outside that I stopped calling. Not all at once. Not in a dramatic way. I just stopped.
The phone stayed where it was.
The screen stayed dark. Days passed. Then weeks. No one noticed. At first, I kept telling myself this was temporary. That he would call when things slowed down. That he would remember. I gave him space. The kind of space they asked for. The kind of space that feels endless. In the beginning, every day felt long. Every hour felt heavier than the last. I still woke up early. Out of habit. I still made tea in the morning. I still set 2 cups on the table. Then slowly, I started setting just 1. I learned to eat alone without crying. Not because it did not hurt, but because I did not want to break every day. I ate slowly, quietly. Sometimes I talked to myself. Just small words. To remind myself I was still here. The house felt different. It was the same house. The same walls. The same furniture. But something was missing. Not something you could see. Something you felt. I started cleaning more than usual. Not because the house was dirty, but because it gave my hands something to do. I opened cupboards I had not opened in years. I went through old boxes. One afternoon, I opened his old trunk. His childhood clothes were inside. Folded neatly. A small sweater. His school uniform. The shirt he wore when he learned to ride a bicycle. I sat on the floor and touched each piece. The fabric felt soft.
Worn. Loved.
I remembered the way he used to run into the house. His clothes dusty. His face bright. I folded his clothes slowly.
Carefully.
Not because I was in a hurry, but because I wanted to remember each moment. I gave some away. To children who needed them. I told myself this was good. That these clothes still had warmth to give. But every piece I gave away felt like another small goodbye. At night, the silence was loud.
I used to hear his voice in my head.
Now even that was fading. I stopped checking my phone as often. I stopped expecting messages. I told myself this was what peace looked like now. I learned how to sit with my thoughts. How to let them come and go without holding them too tightly. Some days were easier. Some days I felt calm. Almost light. Other days, the sadness came without warning. Like a wave. But even then I did not reach for the phone. I reminded myself of his wife's words. He needs space now. I respected that. Even when it hurt. Friends noticed I was quieter. They asked if everything was okay. I smiled and said yes. It was easier than explaining. Weeks turned into months. I celebrated small things alone. Birthdays, holidays that I cooked less. I laughed less, but I was still breathing, still moving. I was learning a new way to live. One night, my phone rang. The sound startled me. I had not heard it ring in so long. I looked at the screen. It was my son. My heart reacted before my mind could stop it. I answered. "Mama," he said. His voice sounded tired and unsure. "Yes," I said gently. There was a pause. Then he asked, "Why don't you call anymore?" I closed my eyes. I took a slow breath. I could have said many things. I could have reminded him. I could have explained. But I did not. I said gently, I didn't want to be a problem. There was silence. Long silence. I could hear his breathing. He could hear mine. The silence held many words. Things we were not saying. Finally, he spoke. "I never meant for you to feel that way." I believed him. But intention does not always change impact. "I know," I said. Another pause. "I miss you," he said softly. My chest tightened. "I miss you too," I replied. We talked for a while. About simple things. The call ended quietly. I sat there with the phone in my hand. I did not feel happy. I did not feel sad. I felt something else. Acceptance that I understood then that love does not disappear. It changes shape. Sometimes it steps back. Sometimes it waits. I did not start calling every day again. I did not return to how things were. I called when I felt welcome. I spoke when spoken to. I learned to protect my heart gently. Without closing it, I stopped asking myself what I did wrong. I stopped measuring my worth by how often my phone rang. I reminded myself that I was more than a role. I was still a person, still a woman, still someone who deserved peace. Some evenings, I sit by the window and watch the sky change colors. I think of my son. I send him quiet prayers, not to bring him back, but to keep him well. I have learned that letting go does not mean stopping love. It means loving without holding. And sometimes, that is the hardest kind of love there is. I still love my son. That love did not change. It didn't soften. It didn't fade. It simply learned how to live more quietly. I used to believe love was something you showed loudly, through daily calls, warm meals, checking in, asking if he was safe, if he had eaten, if his day had been kind. But life teaches you things slowly. And one of the hardest lessons I learned is this. Sometimes love means stepping back, even when your heart stays forward. I had to learn that love is not always holding on. Sometimes it is releasing your hands and trusting that what you raised will stand on its own. I had to learn that silence does not always mean the heart has gone cold. Sometimes silence is simply the sound of someone trying not to break. When I stopped calling him, I was not teaching him a lesson. I was not being dramatic. I was not angry. I was tired. Tired in the way only mothers understand. A kind of tiredness that lives deep inside the bones, made of years of sacrifice, worry, and tenderness. I had carried our little family alone for so long. I had held him when he cried. I had stayed awake through nights of fever. I had prayed over him more times than I can count. I had watched him go from a boy to a man to a husband. I had given him everything a mother can give. And yet, somewhere along the way, I forgot to save a little bit of myself. So when he stopped reaching out, when his world moved farther away from mine, when my calls became something that needed to be limited, monitored, discouraged, I learned to sit still with the ache. People think heartbreak is always loud. Crying, shouting, a dramatic collapse. But the worst heartbreaks are quiet. They happen in the space between phone calls, in the empty chair at the dinner table, in the sound of your own footsteps, when you walk through a house meant for two. I realized something during those quiet months. A mother's love bends. It stretches. It folds itself small so her children can grow. But even the strongest love can grow tired of explaining itself. I still love my son with the same fierce softness. I had the day he was born. But love looks different now. It is gentle. It is patient. It does not reach first. But it is always there, waiting, never closing the door. And if you are listening to this, if your mother is alive, if you still have the chance, please call her. Call her not because she asked. Call her not because you feel guilty. Call her because she is still human, still waiting, still holding 7 versions of you in her heart. The baby you were, the child you grew into, the teenager who slammed doors, the young adult who came home late, the one who used to talk to her freely, the one who stopped, and the one she still hopes to hear from again. People forget that mothers are not made of stone. They are made of memories. Every call you don't make, every message you don't send, every holiday you skip, leaves a small crack she will never mention.
She won't complain.
She won't demand. She won't chase you. Because mothers don't like to disturb. Even when they are breaking. One day, she may stop calling you. Not because she stopped loving you. Not because you did something unforgivable. Not because she is angry. But because she got tired of being strong. Sometimes strength is not holding on. Sometimes strength is letting the phone stay silent, so the hurt can stop echoing. Sometimes strength is accepting that her child now belongs to a new world, a new home, a new priority list that no longer begins with her. A mother steps back, not because she wants to, but because she doesn't want to be where she is not wanted. She will always love you, but even love understands when it is time to go quiet. So, if your mother is still here, in this world, in your life, in your contact list, call her. Not tomorrow. Not when things calm down. Not when you get a little time. Call her now. Call her before she learns to stop reaching. Before she teaches herself to live without hearing your voice. Before her hands grow too tired to keep holding the phone. Before her heart becomes used to silence. You don't need a reason. You don't need a special day. You don't need the perfect words. Just call.
Tell her you're okay.
Ask her how her day was. Let her hear your voice. So she doesn't have to replay old memories to feel close to you. Because one day, her number will still be in your phone, but her voice will be gone. One day, you will scroll through her messages and see how many times she reached out. How many times she said, "I miss you." How many times she waited for a reply that never came. One day, you may wish for just one more call, one more conversation, one more chance. But mothers cannot stay forever. They are borrowed light. We only have them for a little while. I learned to let go, without being asked, without arguing, without demanding anything in return. I learned that love is not always about holding on. Sometimes love is about standing quietly in the doorway and watching someone you raised walk into a life where you no longer fit the same way. I still love my son. I always will. But I no longer break myself to prove it. I love him softly now, from a little distance, from a place where my heart can breathe again. I end my days with a small prayer, not for things to go back to how they were, because life doesn't move backward, but for him to live a life that is full, full of joy, full of love, full of gentleness. And I pray that someday
He will call me.
Not because he feels obligated, not because someone reminded him, not because he feels guilty, but because he wants to, because I cross his mind, because he remembers that once upon a time, it was just the two of us against the whole world, and that his mother, quiet, patient, imperfect, loved him with a love that never stopped, not even when the phone did.